Aloha, welcome to the Mr. G podcast. I'm Mr. G. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about talk show hosts, or in particular, the downfall, the reputation of talk show hosts in the United States have had, similar to the reputation of Saturday Night Live. I am Gregory Brandt, aka Mr. G. I'm coming to you from Honolulu, Hawaii, on the outskirts of Chinatown. I have a lovely English woman watching over me right now. And I just want to say the Mr. G podcast, it's available wherever you listen to podcasts. So you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts. And if you want to watch full episodes, twitter.com/Gregory Brandt. Like I said, talk show hosts. When I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was similar to Saturday Night Live on NBC. They had the best reputation. Johnny Carson was loved, was beloved throughout the 80s and early 90s before Jay Leno took over. And Saturday Night Live at its heyday was in the 1980s and 1990s. That's what people would talk about at the water cooler on Monday morning. They would talk about what happened on Saturday Night Live. That's what kids would talk about in the halls at their lockers on Mondays on what happened on Saturday Night Live. It could have been a Will Ferrell sketch, a Mike Myers sketch, Dana Carvey, all the greats from the 80s and early 90s. But now SNL is a joke. People make fun of how bad it is. And talk show hosts, they've become even worse. Let's go over a few of the talk show hosts and I'll give you my opinion about them and how they've fallen off. Jimmy Fallon was actually on SNL and he was kind of funny on SNL. Now he's just a lame plant. It's like all of the talk show hosts now are just like plants for like liberal, like woke ideologies. Another example, Jimmy Kimmel. He's probably the worst one. Jimmy Kimmel actually used to be somewhat funny with Adam Carolla on the Man Show on Comedy Central. But he's taken a complete 360 now, especially when you watch his interviews with Joe Biden. They're just so lame and so contrived and so not funny. And the way they point, it's just so ridiculous. Another one is Trevor Noah. Trevor Noah had success on The Daily Show on Comedy Central. Trevor Noah was the master of ceremonies for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is usually pretty funny, which has members of the media, members of the press come out to roast the current president. But Trevor Noah did not roast Joe Biden during the Joe Biden's White House Correspondents' Dinner. No, instead he just made Trump jokes and not funny Trump jokes at that. It's become so ridiculous and people see right through it. And if you look at all the comments on any Jimmy Kimmel video on YouTube or any Trevor Noah video, if you look at the comments on the White House Correspondents' Dinner with Trevor Noah, they're all just bashing how he's not funny. There's so many opportunities to make fun of Joe Biden, but the comedians are afraid to do so. And if we live in a world where comedians are afraid to say something controversial or speak their mind, that's a world that's not funny. And that's exactly what we have here. The worst of the bunch, Stephen Colbert, has never been funny. He started off with the fake shtick, like, I'm a conservative, a funny, strange conservative. Now he's just a liberal. And it's always like, how did this guy get a television show? I mean, like I said, when I was growing up, there was only 4 or 5 channels, even before that, before cable. And so Johnny Carson was in just about everybody's living room. And if you were a comedian, it was a big deal to go on Carson. And even though I was a kid, I saw how he was beloved on all by all, and he was on everybody's he was on all the magazines in the lines at the grocery store. And everybody's like, Carson's on, Carson's on. And being a little kid, we were not usually able to stay up that late to watch Johnny Carson. So if you were, it was a big deal. And when Johnny Carson was announcing his retirement, it was also a big deal. Everybody was talking about it as the #1 story on Entertainment Tonight. Who's going to replace Johnny Carson? And I remember the magazine covers at the grocery store had pictures of the possible replacement, and it was Conan O'Brien, Jay Leno, that Irish guy on CBS. And it was like, who's going to get the job? And they kept saying, since Conan O'Brien had the late show, that they were like NBC, on the same network as NBC, and previously Johnny Carson had the Late Show when he had taken it over, and so people were expecting that Conan O'Brien was going to take over Johnny Carson's spot, and they were, grooming Conan O'Brien to be the new host of late night. So one time you can use the word grooming in a positive way. Hey, when I was growing up, grooming meant something a little bit more nefarious. Okay, I know the grooming back in my day. No, seriously, what a word, grooming. I always picture like some old fashioned guy with a big cartoon hat and a big swirly mustache. It's like, hello, I'm a groomer. He's got like a big briefcase. Look at your daily today. What can I get for you? Shaving a haircut? Groomer, professional groomer. I'm a professional groomer. No, but they were grooming Conan O'Brien to take over the talk show host. And side note, with all these lame talk show hosts, Conan O'Brien is the only one that like owned his lameness. All like the number one rule of comedy is you have to be able to laugh at yourself, and Conan O'Brien knows that better than anybody. And the reason Conan O'Brien doesn't fall into the category of Stephen Colbert uh, um, and Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Trevor Noah is because even though Conan O'Brien can come off as a little phony, he understands that. He's smart enough to understand that, and he can still make fun of himself. So Conan O'Brien is the one that separates from the bunch. And history has a way of putting things in order, and history is going to be kind to Conan O'Brien, and history will not be kind to Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Trevor Noah, or especially Stephen Colbert. So that's what I really wanted to talk about today as the talk show host. Thank you for listening. Once again, the Mr. G podcast, it's available at your favorite podcast location. Listen to it on the way to work. Tell your friend about it, and watch full episodes on twitter.com/Gregory Brandt, BRANDT. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.